Did Washington ever hear of the word compromise? Successful companies, organizations, even family, a husband and wife, there's got to be give and take. And it seems both parties are on the extreme end, and it's my way or your way.
As I mentioned, with regard to the Obamacare situation, I voted for 2 compromise plans. However, there's a lot more compromise in Washington than people know about. As I mentioned, for the vast majority of things, they do not get out of the Senate without 60 votes, which means even though he's in the minority, Chuck Schumer, the very left-wing senator from New York, has veto power over almost anything. When we passed what is called an appropriation bill, but I think you would maybe consider it the budget for the fiscal year ending September 30th, we could not get that done without at least 8 votes in the Democrat Senate, which means Chuck Schumer sat at the table and he had to approve everything that's in it. In my first 2 years in Congress, we had the most significant transportation bill in years. We had the most significant Medicare reform bill in years. We had an omnibus bill which funded the government for the first full year that I was there. We had a bill giving back local control on education that I was part of on the Education Committee. Those were 4 significant bills. Some of the bills were the most significant bills we've seen in their topic area for years. They were all entirely bipartisan. As a matter of fact, one of the differences, for better or worse, in Congress compared to the state legislature, because the 60 rule in the Senate, the vast majority of things are bipartisan, and they have to be bipartisan. When we pass the appropriation bills, which will fund the government beginning October 1st, unless the Senate changes its rules, and I don't see the senators changing their rules, they will all be bipartisan. So therefore I have to stop and wonder, why do people always think that everything in Washington is so partisan? And I think it is because if we pass something on a bipartisan basis, you don't get the quotes from Paul Ryan and Nancy Pelosi disagreeing with each other. They just pass, right? They pass 305 to 115 or something or other, and there's no big hoopla. There are some things in which the political parties fundamentally disagree on. Okay, I think it is accurate to say in general on most lines of the budget, except for arguably defense, although all the Democrats voted for a defense bill I thought was a little bit too big spending anyway. But on almost every line, the Democrats will believe that we should spend more on something. That's fine. They're entitled to their opinion, but that's fine. I think most Republicans are quicker to run on a platform of we should balance the budget. So when you look for compromise, you really have people going kind of in the opposite directions in the first place. The same thing when it comes to government regulation. I think maybe Republicans spend more time talking to businessmen. When you talk to the variety of regulatory agencies or talk to farmers, you get complaints of sometimes a lack of common sense and excessive amount of paperwork going with regulation. I think if you look at the Democrats and the position they take on the floor, they feel quite frankly we're not regulated enough. And it's harder to some of that is not just I won't get along, you have people pulling in the exact opposite directions. And if they're pulling in the exact opposite directions, it's hard to say, well, we'll both give them half of what they want. Because maybe one person wants to spend $100 million less than the other one wants $100 million more. But there is a lot more bipartisanship in Washington than you think. And the other thing I'll say is we largely get along. I mean, you know, I unquestionably think that we're spending too much money in Washington. I unquestionably think we're overregulated in Washington. I unquestionably think the welfare system is out of control. But I get along with the Democrats personally. You know, we chit-chat in the morning. When I go downstairs, get dressed for the day, we chit-chat on the floor of the House if you ever turn on C-SPAN, and they love to come up to me and talk to me about how the Packers are doing, or what's the weather at home, or what did you do on August 3rd. So we get along very well. They're just fundamental differences in which way we feel the government's going. And by the way, I'll tell you something else. We are broke out of our mind. We are now we are $20 trillion in debt, about $60,000 in debt for every man, woman, and child in the country. One of the major reasons we're so in debt is a lot of bipartisanship. In other words, the easiest way to get together an appropriation bill is give every congressman something that they want. And by the time they give them all what they want, they pass a bill and everybody stands up and cheers for being bipartisan. So sometimes bipartisanship can be very expensive. That's something to remember before you want too much bipartisanship. As a matter of fact, usually the cost of bipartisanship is more of taxpayers' money.